वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत सिंह तूर। आप सब ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ ਐਂਡ ਸ਼ਲੋਮ। Like I always say, please feel free to get in touch, hstoor@gmail.com. The screen is showing my email address. This is my personal email, and this is meant for conversation for those people who cannot reach out to me via phone. They don't want to call me on the phone, but they definitely have some questions or they want to share their thoughts. So please feel free to send me an email, and I will be more than happy to do that. First of all, there is something which is really very important for the community to begin with. The Nassau County Democratic Committee, they have put up my name, Harpreet Singh Toor, for New York State Assembly District 17, and they have already started getting signatures for that. So in other words, I am a party candidate going forward. And yes, there are issues till, like they say, you are not on the ballot, till the battle is not over, you are still in the battle. So I will not hold my breath on anything, but yes, it is a big honor for the community that our efforts, yes, I'm the face of those efforts, but there are always people behind those efforts who have been supporting what I have been trying to do or what I intend to do. Again, congratulations to South Asians in general, Punjabis and more particular, and Sikhs and more particular case. And if I end up on the November general election, then I will be the first Sikh with a beard and turban to go into a New York State Assembly in the history of New York State. Like in 2010, when I ran in general election for New York City Council, I was the first Sikh on the East Coast to ever run for any elected office in general election. And then Ravi Palla became the mayor of Hoboken. He's doing great job, and right now he's running for US Congress. Even though we had Dalip Singh Sondh, who was a congressman from California. I think he got elected around 1956 or something like that. And he was for 2 or 3 terms. We can definitely check on that. But the difference here is he was clean shaved, and Ravi Palla is the gentleman with the beard and turban, and that's how he is serving as a mayor of Hoboken, and that's how he will go to Congress if he wins the primary and wins the general election on November 5th. There is another thing which I would like to add here, with all due respect to everybody. When it comes down to this, how should I put it down? Some of the people, they may use the term misogynic without even thinking the implications. And it has, what I'm going to say now has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how the outside people look at us, the Sikhs. A person who is walking on the street with a beard and turban is definitely different than another Sikh who happens to be a male, clean shaved, or a female. So yes, both are Sikhs, no doubt about it. But when it comes down to who to pick up the target, or who to make the aim to say the things, pass the derogatory remarks and stuff like that, then definitely I will say that it is a person who looks like me, walks like me, with a beard and turban is the first target. And then also there is a definitely about the Sikhs and the Muslims, that will take a couple of generations. It's not going to be overnight, and it's not going to be just 1 or 2 generations. It's going to be more than that. Let's be realistic about it. And also, when we talk about it, we need to also be mindful of how we behave, how we act. There are things which we need to be careful of. Those are simple things, those could be even though we are crossing the street, not crossing the street properly. It is again like, the person can look down on you, which is, I definitely don't want anybody looking down on anybody, whether it's a Sikh or non-Sikh. And the other thing which I definitely would like to discuss and say here, say here, that our own people, when they go out and they talk, they introduce themselves as, oh, I'm a Sikh. No, it's a Sikh. I know it rhymes with Sikh, S-I-C-K, but it is Sikh, it is not Sikh. Because if then, when you say, oh, it rhymes with Sikh, then how about Sikh? Sikh and Sikh, what's the difference? So I think it is more appropriate to stay the way it is pronounced, Sikh. So that's a humble request to the people, those who use or say Sikh, Sikh instead of Sikh. And also having discussed that this election which is coming up, we will see how it moves and how it goes, and I will definitely keep you in the loop for that. Excuse me. Temperature variations. The next thing is, of course, as we know, that the bugle for elections in India has been declared, and it is announced. The Indian elections are announced, and I can already see and feel the feeling out there among the people, the communities, that how much interest they are showing. And for me, interestingly, when it comes down to that, I don't see that kind of interest in American politics, even though we have been living here for, quite some time. Our next generations are growing up here, and more and more people, more and more kids from our communities, they are becoming professional doctors, engineers, scientists, and some of them, they are professors or the teachers. But somehow they are not getting into the politics. There are very few of them. And that's something, which really, I think Nikki Haley should be used as an example, even though, she changed her name from Nimrata to Nikki. And her husband you picked up her last name from husband, that's fine. And she barely talks about her heritage, even though her parents and her brother, they are also practicing Sikhs. So, but that definitely should be used as, a person to look up to be involved in politics. I'm not saying you need to change your identity and change your religion or anything, because yes, I don't want to get into that religious thing. That can be really crazy, because I always talk about how evangelicals are actually, they have endorsed Trump because of Armageddon, which only he can bring, which they believe. And he also believes that, yes, they are my followers, and he acts like, a cult figurehead. So I may be wrong, but I think that's the closest word which I can use, because otherwise, why would a person like him, when he says, if I do not win, there is going to be a bloodbath on the streets of the United States, it means what? and there are Republicans, including the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is defending his remarks. I don't see why and how they can defend something like that. You know, it's interesting when Joe Biden said that you just cannot love America when you win. You have to love America for what America is, what America has given to you, what you have earned here. And on top of that, you know, another thing before the break, because talking about Trump, the gentleman who claims a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, could not put together $454 million to put up the bail, the bond, not the bail, the bond. You know, it's, to me, I'm shaking my head, and I was shaking my head at that time also, because we who live in New York, we know what type of personality he is, how he became what he became, and how much money he has. We're talking about the elections before we go into the other things. I was talking about Donald Trump's worth. You know, the people, he is selling himself. He sold at least in 2016 as a businessman. I don't know what kind of businessman he was. He declared 4 or maybe 4 bankruptcies worth $5 billion. So go figure what kind of businessman he is. Bloomberg is a businessman, no doubt about it. Koch brothers are businessmen. You know, Turner was a businessman. There are other people, you know, Musk, we can go on, Bill Gates. You know, those are the businessmen. They haven't declared a single bankruptcy. So I don't know where this whole idea and mix-up comes up for the people to admit that, okay, he's a successful businessman. So now going down to elections, again, like I said, you know, this year is going to be really interesting. When we look at the elections happening in India, oh, by the way, before that, in Russia, they just held an election, and Vladimir Putin won more than 85% of the votes, or 82.5% of the votes, to be the president for next 6 years. What a surprise. And yes, like I mentioned in one of my previous shows, that I was in India. And as far as the media is concerned, I don't expect much from the media, except on YouTube. There are some independent journalists who have their own shows. And if you listen to them and then you listen to the media, it's a very fine line. When I was growing up, I used to read, I had the Tribune printed from Chandigarh delivered at my home. And Kuldeep Nayyar was one of my favorite opinion writer at that time. And he always, you know, his editorials were always like between the lines. That is what the title used to be about, you know, whatever the issue is, and then he will say between the lines, which means basically you have to learn how to read between the lines. There is one side of the story, then there is other side of the story. Now, one side of the story is that, you know, the Supreme Court canceled that election bonds and said that the money should be declared and it should be returned. Fine. And now the issue comes in where you have to look at between the lines. The government, the BJP party, had worth more than 5,200 crores, 5,260 crore rupees in the bonds. Congress had 162 crores only, 162 crore versus 5,260 crores. The bank account for the Congress was blocked immediately. Nothing happened to the BJP account. Now, the BJP is saying there is nothing to hide, we are putting out everything. Well, you have the government, you have the enforcement directorate, you have CBI, you have everything. We know how the things work in India. So then why you froze 162 crore, the bank, but nothing happened to 5,260 crore? Even though they have not declared 162 crore, yeah, the bank was like, okay, we have a lot of things to do. I can understand that, fine. But when the Supreme Court put its foot down, then you came out with the answer, which means what? Which means you were literally dragging your feet to make the information public. Now, once the information becomes public, even though it is not 100% public, then you have to look further into it, that what is what. Because it could be that somebody gave money to Harpreet go and buy the bond. Where Harpreet got the money? You know, when information is released, you see the name of Harpreet, but to find out the worth of Harpreet himself then and why he would invest the money in there, it takes time. And then, believe it or not, the guy who runs the lottery system in India, he was the biggest purchaser of the bonds. You know, go figure it out. I'm always against the gambling, so I don't know what to say. I'm not saying don't play lotto. I myself play, but I have my principal once a month, $5. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's my way of looking at it. So that is where reading between the lines comes in. And then, you know, when you talk about the issues, nobody talks about the issues, at least not on the BJP side. Yeah, infrastructure is developing, no doubt about it. And like I did some research. The petrol prices in 2014 was about 47, 48 rupees per liter. Now it is 98 rupees per liter. The cost of per barrel is actually lower today than what it was in 2014. So that $50 extra added, that has to go somewhere. I'm not complaining about that part, but what I'm talking about is that before that, any time if there was an increase in the prices, immediately there were people on the street burning the buses, destroying the public property and everything, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Thanks to the Supreme Court, when they came out with the judgment against this thing to stop the people from destroying the public property in the name of getting equality or justice. Number two, the price on a cylinder was reduced by 2 rupees, and then also the other interesting thing is, which is that there is an advertisement where it is said that the cylinder per household will cost a fixed amount. But nobody is talking about the second cylinder, because one cylinder is not enough for you to go through the whole month, depending on the size of your family. So first one is fixed. What about the second one? Where it went from where to where? Need to look at that. That is another question of looking into between the lines. And the other issues, which I was talking about last show about the farmers, you don't see that much in the news. You see only up to the Punjab, because Punjab is being depicted, Punjab has always been depicted and still is being depicted as number one enemy of the Indian state, as a whole India. Whereas Punjab has always been in the forefront of any fight, whether it was the war with China, war with Pakistan, creation of Bangladesh, independence. Nobody talks about it. They are not asking for any favor, they are asking just equal justice. Implement the last report which was by the commission which was established by Dr. Manmohan Singh for reforms in the agriculture sector, and they are not saying that do it for just Punjab. They are asking for every farmer in India. So those issues nobody is talking about. I was reading today about the air quality in India. India happens to have the third worst air quality in the world, and Delhi is number one right now. And for me, there was another interesting thing. When Kejriwal became the chief minister of Delhi, he implemented even odd plates for the streets with the aim of reducing the congestion, reducing the pollution. Yeah, there was a drop in the pollution and there was a drop in the congestion, but then at that time the government, which is the central government, the federal government, which is Bharatiya Janata Party, they went to the court to get it quashed, and court killed that scheme. Whereas instead of that, they should have looked at the benefits to the general public. How much people get sick from that kind of air, and what kind of money is spent to get those people treated. Nobody was looking into those statistics. And interestingly, when it comes down to that, another thing on the pollution, which is another issue which should be discussed in the election. Yes, I'm going to talk about the issues in US elections also after the break. So they talk about, the farmers burning the, after paddy harvesting. Actually, the biggest polluter are the ACs. Nobody talks about that. Why? Because those people who talk about it, they use those ACs day in, day out. So based on, some of the statistics, first let me say this thing. I have said it before. I myself have no doubt that the next Prime Minister again is going to be the current Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I have no doubt about it. Now the question comes in about the seats. During the budget session, after the budget, when the Prime Minister Modi said note of thanks to the President at that time, which is a customary, I was listening to his speech. I didn't listen to the whole speech, but I was listening to his speech, and some of the language which he used against the predecessors, including Jawaharlal Nehru, I don't understand why, pick up, pieces of the whole thing and use it. But I guess because everybody does that these days, you pick up the whole thing and whatever suits you, you use it. And interestingly, he always talks about Jawaharlal Nehru, and I personally believe that maybe he is trying to equate himself to be better than him. But I think to be better than him, you have to be like they say, secular. Secular is the term which is made look like funny term these days in India. Secularism is where you are not prosecuted based on what you say and what your ideas are. You let the person say his or her thoughts. You let the person practice his or her faith. You do not force a person that why you don't have a flag on 15th of August on your house, because the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi, said that har ghar pe tiranga. Even if you cannot afford it, you got to buy it. You may not be able to put that roti on the table for your family, but that tiranga should be on your chuggi outside. Otherwise, you will get penalized by those hooligans, And I have no hesitation in calling them hooligans because they have no right to force a person for something which he or she cannot afford. There are still people out there who do not have enough clothes. This winter was very harsh winter, and India saw a huge number of people who died from cold because of the cold, old people, which means what? Which means they either did not have enough clothes or they had no resources to heat up the place where they were sleeping. Those are the issues which need to be discussed. Those are the issues which should be coming up. And also, interestingly, the states which actually are going to be very interesting to watch in this election, where even though BJP is targeting to have, Gathbandhan, like they say, I would say West Bengal, Kerala, Punjab, UP, no, UP, forget it. Maybe Andhra Pradesh, but Tamil Nadu and Delhi. In Punjab, BJP and Akali Dal, they had their alliance, which fell apart a couple of years back, and they are working on seat sharing again because Akali party knows that they cannot win without BJP, and BJP knows that they cannot win anything without Akalis working with them. So that will be interesting to watch. And also, the other thing which is, which I personally would say is, like BJP has the current Prime Minister Modi as a face of the Prime Minister. The opposition parties, they do not have one. Well, when the current Indian Congress President Kharge, he said that we will decide about the Prime Minister once we know how many seats we have. I agree with him, no doubt about it. But at the same time, we need the opposition in India, they need a person who can really tackle one-on-one, oratory-wise. Prime Minister Modi is a great orator, no doubt about it. Okay? And he also is a really, really great politician. You got to admit that. When you decide to challenge somebody, unless you admit the strengths of your opponent, you cannot take that opponent head on. So those are the things which needs to be looked at. And as far as the thing is concerned about Delhi, Kejriwal is the BJP has been trying to put Kejriwal on the rope. Interestingly, the people do not know that Delhi, even though Kejriwal is the chief minister, he has no control over the administration. The police is under the governor, and governor is appointed by the BJP government. So what the cops are doing, what the police is doing, it's done on the behest of the government. And that again brings to my mind another thing. Manish Sisodia from Aam Aadmi Party, he is behind the bars for more than a year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe even more than that. But still, a case has to be registered against him. There is a remand after remand after remand after remand. You don't expect those things where the country is dreaming to be a superpower in the world. You just cannot become a superpower just because you have, atomic bombs and maybe hydrogen bombs and neutron bombs and everything to destroy. Those are the things to destroy what is there to have constructive side. Constructive side, the ideas flow from freedom of mind. America is already way ahead, and China is way even more ahead of that with the artificial intelligence. And Saudi Arabia is trying to catch up with that. They just announced a 40 billion with a B, $40 billion to invest in artificial intelligence. And honestly, I myself am afraid of artificial intelligence because tomorrow it could be somebody using my face and everything and using the artificial intelligence to feed the word into my mouth, which I have never said. And I think, even though I said before, but I think it is about time that I dedicate at least in one of my show, at least half the time talking about what exactly it is so that the people who watch this show, they can understand that. So we still have to see how it will go, and the election, the first vote in India is going to be on April 19, and the last one is, I think, June 3, and June 6 or June 9th will be the date when the results will be declared. And it's going to be in different segments, which again is, and it is, we will see. We will see how, even though the people have issues with the voting machines, but honestly, I'm not that much into IT that I would know. I have read about it, but I really cannot comment. That is something, again, like I said before, that is something which has to go between the lines. You need to read about it. And the other thing is about what should I say? When it comes down to the Indian politics, the mix of the faith with politics is so much deep now that it is beyond comprehension. So what I would say that we, the people, should look into it when we go out to vote. Who to vote for? I'm not saying to vote for a corrupt person, but at the same time, when you vote, you should also look at not just the credibility of the person, but also his standing on certain things, like where that person stands on social issues, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of writing, and having an open conversation, how those conversations will be looked at. Would that person will be arrested just because he said something, or would it be accepted as a point in the argument where you can argue about the facts and then try to come to a some sort of agreement that, okay, this is what and how it should be, and that's what we should agree on. That's how we should move on, instead of just because the person said and you did not like it, file a case against him, get him arrested, put him behind the bars and stuff like that. No, that's not the way it should be. It should be an open conversation, and it should be accepted with open heart when it comes down to those open conversations, so that you as a person can feel free to think and do something. One of the reasons why America technologically is where it is, because over here you do not have, your mind is not controlled based on what you can say and what you cannot say, what you can write and what you cannot write. Even though at present, we have the situation where those both extreme right and extreme left, they are using misinformation and disinformation to discredit everything. And nobody is talking about the middle of the road where the people actually enjoy the robust conversation and talk about it. There is a town in Vermont where they hold their meeting every year in the name of democracy. They just held it this weekend. Time-wise, it is always not enough time because a lot of things happen in those 7 days. We know what Chuck Schumer did. Chuck Schumer, being a Jewish by heritage, practicing Jew, saying that Israel should hold elections as soon as the war is over. And I have said at the beginning of the war that Bibi Netanyahu has his interest that as long as he is the prime minister, he cannot be put behind the bars. There is a judgment against him. And that's why he wanted to change the rules also, how the court works in Israel. Welcome to the politics. That's what the politics has come down to. But interestingly, when they change the law, they try to change the law. Again, that same court which they are trying to change the law, they rejected that, and that rejection was accepted, had to be accepted because that's how it is. Okay? So Hamas, yes. Those hostages, yes, they should be released, no if and but about that. But the question is, why the situation came to that point? Now, after the situation came to that point, those things happened. Nobody's talking about why situation came to that point, number one. Number two, now when that conversation is going on about the ceasefire, nobody's actually talking about the hostages, or they are like a secondary issue, not the primary issue. There is no doubt about it that the number of people, civilians, being killed because of this invasion from Israel is absolutely mind-boggling. Civil population is paying for what? Because they just want to live their life. And yes, Hamas is the ruler. If there is a political party, if you don't let the freedom, which I was talking earlier, flow properly, then it will not happen. You will not have the right people to do the right things. Israel, yes, it is a democracy, but it is also lopsided democracy because a vast number of people who live in Israel, they have no right to vote. And nobody talks about that either. Another thing, Bibi Netanyahu never was willing to accept two-nation theory. He is just for the whole Palestine as Israel, period, no ifs and buts. And those people who had been living there since the humankind came into inception on that part of the peninsula, he doesn't care. Those are the issues. When it comes down to American politics, in State of the Union, I have mentioned before, but let me repeat it again. President Joe Biden has an issue which is stuttering. We understand what stuttering is when the person who is talking, he cannot complete the sentence without stopping or like that, So, but he did not stutter. He did stop for some time. His whole life he has spent like that. But nobody talks about when the former President Trump, he makes fun of those people which are handicapped because of one thing or the other. Remember during his first campaign in 2016, there was this press reporter, thanks to that media outlet, who actually employed this handicapped gentleman as an employee. Instead of answering his question, what he was asking, President Trump mocked him. President Trump mocked Joe Biden. President Trump confuses Joe Biden with Obama. President Trump talks about bloodbath. President Trump talks about everything which is negative. Those are not the issues. Issues are where America should go, where and how the middle class will be moved up again, how the people who have been left behind in this trickle-down economy, how they will have the right to move up. You know what is interesting is there are still states where the minimum wage is still $7.25. If you add that up, you get at the end of the year with a 2-week vacation close to about $20,000, $19,000 to $20,000 annual. You even cannot rent a house. How you can buy a house with that kind of income? Even with the $15, which is in certain states, including New York, it jumps you to $30,000 to $32,000. I'm giving you a rough estimate. It makes your life a bit better, but still you cannot buy the house. Which means what? Which means literally that lower income people to move up into the middle, and the middle income people to move up to the higher middle income people, and those people to move up. That dream is not there, or it's not viable in today's situation. Nobody's talking about that. Those are the issues which needs to be discussed. A house is already out of reach from most of the people, and it is getting further and further out of the reach of the people. Why? Because the companies which are these the funds managed by Wall Street people, they are hobbling up the houses in the housing market, and they are renting it out at a higher rate so that they can give a bigger return to the people who have invested in them. But mom and pop, they cannot buy the house. There are less houses like that. And on top of that, we have these laws where if somebody is not paying the rent intentionally, you cannot evict him because the laws are preventing to evict that person. These are the issues. Then on top of that, the proliferation of the guns. Why you need AR-15? I still don't understand. When the people died, or the people die from these mass shootings, the media out there puts it out, especially Alex Jones and his people, and including Brandon. Oh, it was a movie shoot going on. Nothing happened. And those people who don't want to believe it, they believe that. How about this guy who put out this? This was very interesting when he put it out that all these birds which you see, they are flying, they are not actually live birds. Those are artificial birds generated by people so that you can just look at them and you believe that those are the birds, the actual birds with the flesh, blood and bones. But those are not, those are the machines. What kind of society it is developing? Those are the issues. The kids, when they watch, I was shocked. I spoke to one of the mom who has about 7 or 8 year old boy. He apparently watched some TikTok and went to mom. And she was shocked. Nobody's talking about that, how these internet access to the young kids should be monitored or controlled till they are old enough to understand the difference between good and bad, what is right and what is wrong. Those are the issues. When Department of Justice is labeled as an enemy, interestingly, same Department of Justice gave so much to the former President Trump, that he never complained about it. Bill Barr, who gave him everything, one of the most ardent supporter of the President Donald Trump, he never complained about it. But when Bill Barr said that he did not see any big fraud in the elections, out he goes. Why? Because the then President Donald Trump did not want to admit that he lost the election. Because for him, it was shameful that he lost something. So we need to understand, we need to separate the issues, the real issues, than just going on the stage, mocking up somebody and talking about it. And unless we do that, we may not succeed in making America what America should be, what we dream of America as a nation, as a country. We may be falling behind on that, and we don't want to fall more behind that. We need to put a stop on that separation. Just because you are a Democrat or Republican and you do not talk to each other, you hate each other, we need to go beyond that. We need to come out of that. And we need to work together for United States of America. Like they say, it's a, red, blue, and white, but it is U.S. flag. And that is what this country is about: freedom of speech, acceptance, and moving forward. With that note, till next time, good night and good luck.